Okay, managing operational risk. Before we manage operational risk, we have to understand first what is operational risk. Okay, some of your friends have given the idea yesterday night. Operational risk is unlike market risk, credit risk. This actually arises from the day-to-day operation. I did mention about it as well. Okay, it involves process, people, and system. Process, people, system. Okay, it is not arise from the borrower's default. Okay, as what happened to credit risk, does not rise from fluctuations of the financial market variables, fluctuations of interest rate, market prices, exchange rate. No. Okay. So operational risk is basically refers to losses that arise, okay, arise from day-to-day operation, arise from the way the organization runs its day-to-day operation. Okay, it arises from the way an organization runs its day-to-day operation. Okay. Now, this one is based on the definitions by Basel Committee on BCBS, Banking Supervision. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Okay, this one, it is, okay, the definitions here. The definitions here is actually from, okay, according to the Basel Committee. Basel Committee, okay. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Okay, if you still remember, now chapter 2 kan. Ini adalah BCBS, dia punya short form. Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. Okay, supervision macam apa? Yes. Supervision. Okay, BCB, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So this definition comes from it, whereby according to the Basel Committee, it says that the operational risk can be defined as the risk of loss resulting or as the outcome from inadequate, okay, the lacking of ataupun fail internal processes, people. Look at that, 1, 2, 3, people, processes, people, system, or from external event. So if it comes from internal factor, it should due to process, people, system, or from external event. So ini maksudnya operational risk. They are not totally from internal factor. They can also be from the external event. So this make up the operational risk. Okay, so I did explain a little bit yesterday, but I didn't finish it. What is internal process? So proses apa yang kita maksudkan di sini? It says fail internal, the risk of loss resulting from fail internal process. So fail internal process maksud dia apa di sini? Proses apa yang dimaksudkan? Ini merujuk kepada internal processes, maksudnya failure in, contoh dia failure in procedures, policies, atau work flows, itu maksud dia proses. So fail dalam internal processes merujuk kepada apa? It refers to failure in the company's punya procedure, policy, or workflow. Okay, poor workflow. And then I did mention about this. Contoh dia dalam slide yang seterusnya tu. Okay. It gives you the example. Di sini. Look at that process. Okay. So example can be in the form of accounting error, valuation error, transaction error. Okay, so kalau accounting error, it can be capacity risk, contract risk, mis-selling risk, project risk. So, ini adalah examples of failed internal process, errors in transaction. Okay, errors in transaction. Okay, transaction processing lah. Accounting, valuation, transaction. Poor record keeping, okay, ataupun ineffective internal control. You can also say the failed internal process ini juga, okay, refer to the ineffective internal control. Okay, ineffective. Okay, ini ineffective internal controls. Okay, control. All right. And then people, okay. So people ini we know lah, it's very direct. It is caused by human mistake ataupun misconduct. Okay. So this one, this actually refers to risk caused by human mistake or misconduct. Risk caused by human mistakes or misconduct. Okay, so what kind of example here? Kita boleh tengok sini. Example, kalau people, can see here, ini contoh. Right? Can be employee misdeed, error, fraud, collusion, employee liability, employer liability, employment law, ada okay, problem ataupun health and safety issue, health and safety problem, industrial action, lack of knowledge and skills. These are all referring to risk caused by human mistakes ataupun employee negligence, right? Misconduct. Itu maksud dia kalau people. Okay? Because of fraud. Okay? Now, what about system? The third one is, sudah sini. Okay. So ini, this one, risk caused by human mistake or misconduct. Okay. Ataupun this can also refer to the employee negligence. Okay, negligence, right, can be also due to lack of training. Tadi skill. Okay, and the third one, okay, which is fail due to system. So this actually refers to failures in technology. Okay, technology or infrastructure, facility, infrastructure, system. So this can be due to failure in technology or infrastructure. Apa contoh-contoh dia? Contoh-contoh dia, okay, can see that. It's because of the data, due to data quality, programming error. Ini kalau data quality maksudnya poor data quality lah. Okay, poor data quality, programming error, security breach, strategic risk, system capacity, compatibility, delivery failure, instability, semualah sistem. Okay, so it could be cyber, in this case security breach. Ini mungkin cyber attacks lah, cyber attacks, system crashes, all of this. Okay, that affecting the system of the organization. Right now, that's a system. Failure in technology or infrastructure, okay, which is caused by cyber attack tadi kan, system crashes, semua yang contoh-contoh tadi. Bagi contoh, okay, from external or from external event. Apart from internal, we have external event. Kalau external event, something to do with what is this? Operational risk, ini merujuk kepada natural disaster lah. Okay, this actually refers risk of losses caused by external factor, which is outside the organization control. Okay, this actually refers to risk of loss, okay, caused by factors outside the organization control. Okay, for example, natural disaster, pandemics, regulatory changes, those are external events. It refers to risk of loss, risk of losses caused by factors outside the organization control. Okay, so ini adalah operational risk. Right. Now, why is it important? Important of operational risk. Okay, why is it important for organization to manage operational risk? Well, why is it important for the organizations to manage operational risk? Okay, I need 3 methods managing. Why is it important to manage operational risk? Okay, so it is very important for the organization because number 1, reductions of operational loss. Okay, so what does it mean here? Second, lower compliance or auditing costs. Third, early detection of unlawful activities. Fourth, reduce exposure to future risks. So the first one, why is it important? Reductions of operational loss. Okay, so when you get to identify those weaknesses that is due to risk in the processes, macam tadi kan, when you get to identify all the factor ataupun weaknesses in process, you get to identify, oh ada kelemahan dari segi processes, oh ada kelemahan dari segi people, ada weaknesses in terms of the system. Okay, so when you identify it earlier, when you we are talking about importance to manage operational risk. So when we identify the weaknesses in processes, people, system, the organization, they can prevent costly error. Okay, they can prevent costly error as a result from that poor processes, people and system. Ya, they can prevent costly error. Sebab setiap error tadi itu dia mempunyai cost yang sangat besar. To manage it, to repair it, kan? You need to repair the error. You need to, if it is because of fraud by your employees, you need to pay compensation to your client, to your customer. Itu pun cost juga sana tu, involve cost. Okay? Or disruption. You can prevent from disruption, gangguan, in terms of the system. So if the bank do not manage its system properly, mudah kena hack. Can the public trust this particular bank? Contohlah Bank Islam. Baru buka new card today. Baru buka account today. Ataupun baru renew card today. Renew the card kan sudah expire. Your debit card, if you notice, dia punya ada deadline dari sana tu. Contoh mungkin 3/27. So maksudnya the card will expire in March 2027. So you want to go and renew it. So baru sejak renew, tahu-tahu the next day the money hacked by people. Dia so kena curi sudah duit. Tapi padahal ini baru renew card. Ada case baru-baru itu. So in fact, it's actually involving my own colleague. Dia baru renew card dia di CIMB. So what happened is that they noticed that little by little money was being used in that card. Dia sikit-sikit dia keluar. Dia ada RM1, RM2, RM10, RM15, begitu. So the colleague was wondering, kenapa ada keluar sikit-sikit duit ini. Tahu-tahu ada masalah, orang hack itu dia punya account. Tidak tahu macam mana kena hack. Macam mana boleh berlaku begitu. Can you imagine that system? If there's a problem, ini financial institution. Pegang duit rakyat. Saving rakyat. Apalagi kalau yang ada satu drama kan, if you ever watch it lah. I watch it before, it's a Malay drama yang curi 1 sen saja itu. 1 sen saja dia ambil. 1 sen ke RM1? Have you ever watch it? Pencuri 1 sen kan? The title of the drama. Pencuri 1 sen. Kalau you tengok Malay drama lah kan, you all tengok Korea drama saja ni. Tahu tak ada story? Melibatkan bank, ha? Ada cerita tu. Kalau you tengok Netflix. Pencuri 1 sen. It's a Malay drama. Sampai dia jadi kaya. Hanya dengan 1 sen. Imagine dia tulak 1 sen satu rakyat Malaysia. 1 sen saja dia ambil. Tidak banyak. You sendiri pun tidak notice itu 1 sen. Tapi as time goes by, tapi that one is caused by people, fraud people. Dia punya pekerja sendiri. And not because of system entirely. So when the organization be able to identify weaknesses in process, people and system, the organization can prevent costly errors, fraud, they can prevent from fraud. Okay, kalau ada lacking skill apa semua lagi, okay, they can prevent errors, fraud or disruption. Okay. So a bank that has a strong internal control can reduce the chance of losses lah, from the transaction error, okay, because of the system, okay? Transaction error or staff negligence. Okay, so bank with strong internal control, they can reduce the chance of losses, okay, from transaction errors and staff negligence. Contoh. Second tadi adalah lower compliance or auditing costs. I hope you write it down. Otherwise, you have to record them. Lower compliance or auditing costs. Okay, so if the organization, if the financial institutions has effective operational risk management, kan? If the financial institution has effective operational risk management, it will ensure the financial institution comply with the laws. Okay, it will ensure the organization comply with the laws, whatever regulation, the internal policy. Itu kalau financial institution or the organizations have effective operational risk management. Otherwise, okay, they will have to bear, if they do not comply, okay, if they do not comply with the law, with the regulations, sorry, internal policy requirements, all of this, they will be subject to penalties. And they also have to pay higher, very costly external audit, right? They will have to pay fines. So, what is the importance of operational risk management? Bila kita ada effective risk management, effective operational risk, company senang saja comply with all the regulation, internal policy and all. Senang. Okay? It ensure the organization to comply with all the regulation and internal policy. And this also reduce the frequency for penalty, reduce the frequency for auditing, reduce the frequency for fines, contoh, denda. Because you comply, kan? When you abide to the standard of operational risk management, when the company abide to the standard operational risk management, they comply to regulation, requirement, laws, they comply all the internal policy. So ini akan reduce ataupun lower the compliant cost. Compliant cost ni contoh dia yang penalty, fines, itu maksud dia. Reduce the frequency of compliant costs atau regulatory penalty, regulatory fines, dan juga auditing cost. It reduce this auditing cost. Maksudnya company itu dia tidak perlu bayar cost untuk external audit, double check everything, kan, sama ada dia memenuhi peraturan, memenuhi the policy, memenuhi regulation ataupun tidak. Okay, sebab bila kita ada operational risk management yang bagus, okay, we have proper documentation, we have proper control system, so it makes the auditing pun become smoother. Tidak perlu kita panggil external audit, tengok semua, double check lagi. Kan biasa dia company dia kena appoint lagi external audit to double check dia punya financial statement, to convince the public yang dia buat betul-betul. Dia tidak cukup dengan hanya internal audit, dia panggil lagi external audit tu double check dia punya compliance, right, dia punya documentation and all. Okay, whether they have proper documentation, control system yang bagus, itulah. So bila kita, again, when you have effective operational risk management di sini, maksudnya the organization, dia complies with laws, regulation, internal policy and all lah. Okay, so this reduce or lower the compliance costs such as penalties, fines ataupun auditing costs. Okay, because they have proper documentation control system, which makes the auditing even smoother. Now, the third one, early detection of unlawful activities. Okay, so when you have effective operational risk management, it serves as early detection. Kalau kita ada operational risk management yang bagus, itu akan membantu kita early detection of any unlawful activities. We be able to detect fraud. We be able to detect insider trading. We be able to detect any stuff that misuse the company resources. Any stuff that misuse the company resources. Itu maksudnya unlawful activities. Siapa yang buat ini unlawful activities? Ini bukan sistem, ini orang yang buat ini. Activity yang dijalankan oleh the internal employees, manager, boss, right? So when you have good operational risk management, okay, you'll be able to detect, right, any unlawful activities. You'll be able to detect fraud. You'll be able to detect insider trading. Contoh-contoh. You'll be able to detect employee that misuse the company resources. Right? So it helps with the early detection. Fourth, what is the importance to have effective? Importance of operational risk management. Kamu tulis sana, operational risk management. Bukan operational risk sahaja, operational risk management. Atau kita boleh kasih tahu importance of having effective operational risk management. Okay, so the fourth one is it is able to reduce exposure to future risks. Reduce exposure to future risk. So ini lebih kepada the organizations punya proactive risk management lah. Sebab kalau reduce exposure to future risk, dia belum lagi berlaku. So the company is being proactive. Okay, the organization is being proactive in risk management. So this will build apa dia? Satu benda yang penting iaitu, okay, ini maksudnya organization being proactive in risk management. Okay, so this builds resilience. Okay, resilience against unforeseen events. Apa dia? Contoh dia adalah cyber attacks. Kalau dia usaha dia buat penambahbaikan dia punya sistem, dia tambah baik dia punya security, so dia prevent from unforeseen event such as cyber attack. Okay, natural disaster, ada backup. So itu maksudnya being proactive in risk management. Thus this build resilience against unforeseen events such as cyber attack, natural disaster, okay, disaster, pandemics, macam tu COVID kan. Tengoklah, bank tiada yang tutup, tiada yang fail bank masa COVID. Tu bank masih berdiri sana lah mesra. Kan? Bank Islam masih berdiri sana lah mesra. Tiada yang tutup. Sebab mereka being proactive in risk management. That actually builds resilience against unforeseen events such as this lah. Alright. So this is very important why we need to have operational risk management. Okay. So another way, how do we see this effective operational risk management? It when we see here, not only that it reduced the operational loss, it ensured the compliance here, it protect it detect early, it detect um, it detect early, it is it leads to early detections of fraud, okay, insider trading. It also reduce exposure to future risks. Okay, so this is reason why it is important, okay, for any organizations to have effective operational risk management. Now, earlier we have learned the two categories of operational risk, internal and external. Kalau internal, it is caused by yang tadi tu kan, people, procedures, and system. Kalau external risk, this actually caused by beyond the control of the company, okay, or organization. Right? This could be the natural disaster, regulatory change, okay, pandemics. So all of these are beyond the control of the organization. So we have learned this. Internal risk, I've already covered this, and external risk, it also can be due to all of these. Okay, money laundering, legal, outsourcing, political, regulatory, supplier risk, debts. If it is in a form of physical, natural disaster, pandemic, macam tu lah, fire, okay, physical security, terrorism, kecurian. So ini adalah contoh-contoh external risk. Okay. Now, how do we assess the operational risk? So one of the approach is the comparison of approaches in assessing operational risk. Comparisons of approaches. How do we assess? Now, when we manage operational risk, okay, it is very important for the organizations to measure how big is the risk, okay, or how big is the losses. It is very important for the organizations to assess it. Sorry. It is very important for the organizations to assess it, means how serious it is. So here, comparisons of approaches ini dia merujuk kepada dua approach, which is top-down approach and bottom-up approach. Okay, approaches in assessing operational risk itu ada dua, which is top-down and bottom-up. Okay, comparison of approaches between top-down and bottom-up. So when we manage operational risk, again, organization need to measure how big is the losses. How big is the losses? You need to measure how big is the losses caused by that failure. Okay, and they need to assess it, how serious it is. So let's look here. Sorry. Okay, sekejap ah. Right. So the first one is top-down models. Attempt to measure operational risk at the broadest level using firm-wide or industry-wide data. Bottom-up model is start from individual business unit or process level. The result then aggregated maksudnya combine to determine the risk profile of the institution. Right? This is the explanations for the bottom-up. Tools used to manage operational risk in bottom-up approach. Now, in this original handout by the resource person, there is no diagram basically. And we have just asked it to the RP, the resource person, if there is a diagram that referring to these comparisons of approaches. Okay, comparisons of approaches, top down, bottom up. But because she hasn't replied to me yesterday through the LIC, so I have come up with that. I think could be used. Okay, the diagram. Kalau you tengok dalam ni, okay, ini diagram. Risk escalated bottom up, okay, and then cascaded top down. So top down is from top to bottom here, bottom up, macam itulah lebih kurang. Can you see this diagram?
Can Dr.
Okay. So if it is based on the top-down models itu, this model is basically it measure from the it measure broadest level, okay, using firm-wide or industry-wide data, right? If we look from this diagram, top down, from top down, operational risk is the broadest level. Kalau tengok sini betul juga lah, operational risk itu adalah the broadest level. Okay, broadest level using firm-wide or industry. So here, if we are based on the top-down models, basically it will look at the organization as a whole rather than individual unit, because it says that it is using firm-wide or industry-wide data, not it is not based on the specific individual unit, but rather it looks at the organization as a whole. Right? So when it says that it is based on firm-wide or industry-wide, okay, industry-wide data, so it will use the organizations or the firm, the market trends, firm losses, ataupun benchmarking data to estimate the overall operational risk exposure. Okay. Now, the limitations of this model, kalau dia measure operational risk at the broadest level sini, it could be, ini sebenarnya bukan daripada resource person, okay? Sebab the reason why we took this, the reason why I took this image from the Google, ini saya Google search saja ni, tetapi dia could be other diagram. I am not sure, okay, because we yet to receive any from the resource person. Tapi kalau kita tengok sini, dia punya operational risk ini is the broadest lah, okay. Cuma kalau top down models itu, kalau kita tengok itu error dia kan, dia ke bawah. We see here, dia ke bawah ni. Okay. Ini. But I was not convinced with this diagram actually. Macam saya tidak berapa convinced sebab could be macam begini. Inverted. So dia akan tengok di sini atas. Ini top. Tapi dia guna satu segitiga saja. Otherwise ada satu lagi. I did show two images basically. So kita tengok sini ya. Let me stop sharing dulu. I got one more. I'm not sure kalau saya dah share sama kamu semalam itu. Oh, okay. Let me just share with you all. Ada satu lagi. Let us just look at it. Because you guys can open the image ataupun tidak. Dapat kan? Boleh tengok the image?
Boleh, dokter.
Tengok dulu yang satu ini. Kalau ini daripada widely. Ada tidak mention sangat top down bottom up ini. In fact ini gambar buku saja. Tapi something to relate with that diagram juga. Cuma nothing. Okay. See this one? Mana? Saya buka yang satu lagi image. Semalam saya cari. Just see this one. Kalau ini sama juga. Dia ada operational, tactical, strategic. Operational is the broadest level lah. Tapi still I was not convinced on this. Okay, never mind. Nanti takut kamu salah lukis diagram. Okay. This one. Ini kita delete lah. Delete. And also this part, right? I think I'm just gonna delete this, okay? Kita tunggu saja. Nanti kalau ada sudah, then we look at it lah. Right. So in this case, top-down models ini and bottom-up. Okay. We wait for the diagram lah from the resource person. Saya pun tidak ada. Semalam saya berhabis cari. I couldn't. So most important, bila dia kalau top-down models ini, okay, a little bit of note here, top-down models. It says that attempts to measure operational risk at the broadest level using firm-wide or industry-wide data. Maksudnya dia measure dia punya operational risk itu, measure operational risk by looking at the organization as a whole. Maksudnya, measure operational risk by looking, ini maksudnya, by looking at the organization as a whole. Okay, by looking at the organization as a whole. At the broadest level, begitu, firm-wide or industry-wide. So they're looking at the organization as a whole. Okay, dia tidak look at the individual department, individual unit dalam organisasi, tapi dia tengok organisasi itu secara langsung. Okay, so ini normally it uses bila dia guna firm-wide, industry-wide data. So what kind of data that is actually looking for? This could be the market trends. Okay, it uses market trends. Okay, benchmarking data. Okay, to estimate the organization yeah, the organization overall operational risk exposure. So another thing about this top down, sebab dia tengok operational, dia measure operational risk itu at the broadest level. Maksudnya it's a bigger picture. Okay, they view the operational risk at the bigger picture, a big picture. Okay, broadest level ni maksudnya bigger picture. Ataupun by looking at the organization as a whole. So it uses market trends, benchmarking data to estimate the organization overall operational risk exposure. Okay, so ini top down. What about bottom up? Okay, kalau bottom up, right? Now this model, it start at individual business unit. Look at that. Or process level. The result then aggregated to determine the risk profile of the institution. So maksudnya, okay, bottom up models ini, it is defined as that this model start at the individual business unit or process level. So dia tidak measure operational risk tu sebagai satu gambaran yang besar. Satu gambaran yang besar about the company. But rather it will look at the department. Okay, ini maksudnya dia akan tengok kepada department, it looks okay, at department or unit. Risk, and then it says that the result then aggregated, and then the results aggregated to build the overall risk. Okay, risk profile, ya kan? Risk profile to determine the risk profile of the institution. Okay, so contohnya, so it looks at department ataupun unit risk, and then the result they combine it to build overall risk profile, of the institution. So contohnya, a bank dia collect operational risk data separately. Dia collect operational risk data separately from each department. Contoh daripada corporate department, daripada retail department, daripada investment department. Okay, again contoh dia macam a bank tadi. Okay, a bank, it collects operational risk data itu, we're talking about operational risk data separately daripada each department. Example, retail department, corporate department, investment department. And then the bank will combine this operational risk data daripada setiap satu unit, setiap satu department tadi, and form a total risk. Okay, combine it to determine the risk profile of the bank. So one thing about bottom-up models ni, because it started from individual business ataupun process level, so dia more detail, it provides more detailed insight about the specific risk area. It provides detailed insights of the specific risk area. Of course, it can be time consuming jugalah sebab you kena determine the operational risk of satu unit, satu department. Ini operational risk dia di department ini macam mana? Operational risk department B macam mana? Operational risk department C macam mana? So it can be time consuming compared to top down. Kalau top down, dia tengok organisasi itu secara menyeluruh. As a whole, menyeluruh. So dia provide a bigger picture view lah. So it is more faster. Okay, more faster compared to bottom-up models. Bottom-up models, it provides you detailed information, detailed insights about each specific risk area tadi. So it can be time consuming. Right? Can be time consuming lah. Okay, are you following?
Yes, Doktor.
Boleh faham semua?
Boleh.
Alright, so itu adalah top down, bottom up lah. Kita tiada gambar aja, but that is how we understand these models. Okay, we understand these models. Nanti kalau ada tu gambar aja, then we'll look at it, dan kita revise lagi pada. Alright, now let's look at the next one. Tools used to manage operational risk in bottom-up approach. What are the tools that we use, that the bank or the financial institution use in bottom-up approach for managing operational risk? So earlier we have learned that bottom-up models, it start at individual business unit or process level. We look at the specific risk from each unit, and then we aggregated them, and then the result is aggregated to determine the risk profile. So ini bottom up. Okay. So what are the tools that is used or applied in this approach? The first one, it use audit oversight. This consists of reviews. Okay, consists of reviews of business process and external audit department. Okay, so this involves independent review. Independent review of apa? Consists of review of business process. This actually involve independent review of business processes that is conducted by the external audit department. Itu maksud dia. So in this case, right, how the organization use bottom-up approach to monitor risk, yang pertama dia guna external audit department. So the external audit department will give independent review about the business process. So untuk apa ini? Untuk apa tujuan mau bagi independent review about that business process? To check whether the organization comply ataupun tidak. To check compliance with policies. Okay, to detect weaknesses in the system. Okay, and when you are being audited by external department, this actually gives assurance lah that the risks are being managed properly. Because daripada external audit, dia orang punya judgment cannot be influenced by the shareholder. Dia orang punya judgment itu, independent review itu tidak will not be influenced by the by the top management, by the executive. Sebab bila ada internal audit, normally internal audit pun orang dalam juga kan, dia pun makan gaji juga. So bila dia makan gaji, kalau ini bukan cakap kosong, ini adalah based on true research study. Orang yang dalam company, they can be easily influenced. Their decision can be easily influenced by the top management. Sebab dia makan gaji. So kalau something is wrong, something is lacking, something is poor management dalam company, dalam organisasi, yang kena cek dulu adalah internal audit. Whether are they making sure the company comply with the policy, comply with the law, comply with the regulation. Alright, itu internal audit kena cek. Tapi itulah untuk kadang-kadang kalau ada if there is if the mistake caused by the purposely, intendedly caused by the orang dalam juga, senang sajalah dia bisik-bisik di telinga. Kalau kau bising, dia bilang potong gaji. Kalau kau bising, dia bilang besok-besok kau berhenti kerja, tiap payah datang kerja. So, how the company, because the bottom up approach ini, dia departmentalize. Dia check itu operational risk through departments. Dia tidak tengok risk itu secara overall, menyeluruh. Tetapi dia very specific through department. So, daripada keuangan, daripada marketing, daripada semua bahagian dia tengok. Jadi dia very detail. So tools used to manage operational risk in bottom-up approach, dia guna external department, external audit department to provide independent reviews about business process. So dia punya purpose here is to check compliance, with policies, right? It detects weaknesses in system, right? And also at the same time, because you are being audited by external audit department, it gives assurance that the risks are being managed properly. Okay. Second, critical self-assessment. Each business unit identifies the nature and degree of operational risk. Okay. 3 subjective evaluation include expected frequency and severity of loss, as well as description of how risk is controlled. So when you talk about critical self-assessment here, it means that each business unit tadi itu, maksudnya each department tadi, each unit, they will evaluate their own risk. It will evaluate its own risk, identify the nature and each department tadi dia akan identify the nature and degree of operational risk. Maksudnya each business unit will evaluate its own risk, identifying the nature and degree of operational risk it faces. Okay, so the assessment basically involve 3 subjective evaluation. Okay, it involves 3 subjective evaluation. And the first one is expected frequency of losses. Expected frequency of losses. Second, severity of losses. Ini expected frequency of losses kalau kita separatekan. Kedua, severity of losses. Ketiga, descriptions of how risk is controlled. Maksudnya control measure lah. Sini description of how risk is controlled, maksudnya ini adalah the third part is the control measure. Ini nampak kata? Control measures. Ini the third one. Okay, first one, expected frequency of losses. Second, severity of losses. Third, control measure, which is the descriptions of how risk is controlled. The tool used for this type of process include checklists. So ada checklist, ada questionnaire, okay, and also facilitated workshop. So these are the tool used under critical self-assessment. The results are then aggregated, then combined in a bottom-up approach. They are aggregated to form the organization's overall risk profile. Okay. Now, the third approach, the third tools used to manage operational risk in this bottom-up approach is key risk indicator, KRI. Key risk indicator. This approach consists of simple measure that provides an indication of whether risks are changing over time. These early warning signs can include audit scores, staff turnover, trade volumes, and so on. The assumption is that operational risk events are more likely to occur when this indicator increase. So if our KRI increase, maksudnya apa? Operational risks are more likely to occur. So these objective measures allow the risk manager to forecast losses through the application of regression technique. Okay, so this KRI, okay, key risk indicators. Key risk indicators, yeah. These are actually a very simple tool, and it acts as a warning. It acts as a warning sign of potential risk exposure. So it acts as early warning sign of potential risk exposure. So the indicator may include, itulah tadi itu. The indicator tadi, any warning sign, audit score, staff turnover, and then trade volume. So macam mana audit score, staff turnover, trade volume become the indicator kepada potential risk exposure. So contohnya kalau audit score ini maksudnya tengok kepada compliance levels lah. Kalau audit score you rendah, maksudnya you are not fully compliant. Kalau audit score you tinggi, maksudnya you comply lah, you fully comply with the rules and regulation, with the indicated policy, with the internal policy. If your audit score is higher, it will tells you that you fully comply. Lower audit score, maksudnya ada problem lah, adalah bahagian-bahagian yang you tidak menepati, right? You tidak follow, you tidak comply. So satu, dalam perhatian, contoh. Okay, staff turnover. So you tahu lah kalau higher turnover apa maksud dia? Something wrong with your operational. Okay, something wrong with your operational. If the staff turnover is very higher, maksudnya keluar masuk staff ini hari ini dia masuk report duty. 1 minggu selepas itu dia keluar sudah, dia berhenti. Something wrong with your operational. This could indicate operational instability, for example. Trade volume. Trade volume. How does the trade volume can indicate potential risk exposure? Okay. If the trade volumes dia tiba-tiba dia naik, tiba-tiba dia jatuh, so it could be fraud risk. It could indicate the existence of fraud. It could indicate, okay, error, transaction error. So unusual increases, decreases, it could tell you that that there could be transaction error, there could be fraud, right? So dia punya assumption di sini adalah when the indicator, when KRI increase, when the KRI increase, maksudnya kita punya operational risk are more likely to occur, more likely to occur. Okay, to occur. Okay, are more likely to occur. So this early warning signs. So this act as the early warning sign. So it's very simple, kan? Are you guys following? Faham? Boleh ke faham?
Boleh, Madam.
Oh, satu orang saja. Mana pergi itu yang lain-lain? Yang lain-lain mana?
Boleh, Madam.
Boleh, Doktor.
Boleh, Madam.
Okay. Any question? Ada soalan? Ada sikit lah ya. Let's move on to the next 3 models used to measure operational risk. Ini masih lagi di dalam ini. Tools used to manage operational risk, bottom-up approach. Ini the first 3. Next one, earnings volatility. This approach consists of taking a time series of earnings after striping the effect of market and credit risk and computing its volatility. The risk measure is simple but has numerous problems. Wow. The measure include fluctuation due to business and macroeconomic risks, which fall outside of operational risk. Also, such a measure is backward-looking and does not account for improvement or degradation in the quality of control. Okay, so this earnings volatility ini sebenarnya konsepnya adalah it measure operational risk by analyzing itu volatility, analyzing the fluctuation. Okay, this tool, this tool earnings volatility ini, it measure operational risk by analyzing apa tadi? By analyzing, computing its volatility, by analyzing the volatility. So what is the volatility here? It refers to, this measure includes fluctuation. Volatility in bracket fluctuation. Okay, fluctuation in the firm's earning. Okay, in the firm's earnings. Right? So it takes a time series of earnings data, right? And it also removes the market risk. It removes the striping the effect. Look at that. After striping the effect of market risk. Maksudnya, it removes the effect of market risk and credit risk. Okay, so remove the effect tu maksudnya the changes in the stock prices, borrowers default, so they remove ini. Yang ada cuma volatility sahaja to represent the operational risk. Okay, yang ada cuma volatility saja. So it consists of taking time series of earnings after removing the effect. Striping tu maksudnya remove lah. Removing the effect of market and credit risk. And it only compute the volatility. Okay, which is represented as operational risk lah. Okay. However, the thing is that with this approach, with this tool, dia relying on past performance. Backward looking ini maksudnya it relying on past performance. And it does not account for improvement or degradation atau deterioration lah in internal control. Ini dia punya drawbacks lah. Right, this is the drawbacks of the tools when using earnings volatility. So it removes the effect of market and credit and computing its volatility, which is ini volatility ini to represent operational risk lah. Yang tinggal cuma operational risk. Okay. The risk measure is simple. It is simple, tapi banyak masalah. Okay. So the problem with this tool is that it relies more on past performance, backward looking, and it does not capture, it does not account improvement or deterioration in the quality control, in the internal controls. Ini internal control. Okay. Causal network. This one is the network described. Causal networks means networks describe how losses can occur from cascade of different causes. Causes and effects are linked through conditional probability. Simulation are then run on the network, generating a distribution of losses. Such bottom-up models improve the understanding of losses since they focus on drivers of risk. Casual networks are best applied to processes involving complex workflows with many activity. Okay. Causal network ini, it requires the organizations to come up with the cause and effect relationship that leads to losses. Okay, network describe how losses can occur from cascade of different causes. So kalau kita baca begitu sih mungkin apa ini? So ini maksud dia di sini. Okay, the operational risk itu is done. The operational risk management is done by looking at the causes and effects relationship here. Okay, that can lead to losses. All right. So in this case, causal network ini, how they are actually looking at how the risks are connected. Contohnya mungkin kalau if there is a shortages in staff, kenapa berlaku staff shortages here? So could be because of when there is a staff shortages, this will lead to delayed in processing. Okay, so bila ada delayed processing, this will lead to financial losses. Contoh begitu, when there is a shortages in staff, it will lead to delay processing. When there is a delay processing, it could lead to financial losses lah. Okay, so it actually involved where the organizations they look into cause dan effect. Apa yang akan terjadi kalau berlaku begini? Contoh shortages in staff. Efek dia apa? So dia akan menyebabkan proses menjadi perlahan lah. Dan bila proses jadi perlahan, okay, nanti ada it will lead to bigger issue, which is financial losses. All right. So this is what it means by causal, in which such bottom-up models improve the understanding of losses. So the strength of this causal network adalah, it says such bottom-up models, maksudnya causal networks as a tool being causal network helps to improve the understanding of losses since they focus on drivers of risk. Okay, drivers of risk ini. So dia help understanding the drivers of risk. Maksudnya what causes the risk? What causes the risk? Drivers of risk ini maksudnya what causes the risk? Okay. So tadi what causes financial loss? Itu staff shortages. How? Staff shortages will lead to delay in the processing. Mungkin ada error sana sini sebab delay kan. Then ada boleh menyebabkan financial loss. So it helps understanding of losses, improve the understanding of losses. Okay, since they focus on drivers of risk, what causes the risk. And this normally best applied to processes involving complex workflows with many activity. Ini ngam lah. Dia daripada satu kepada satu, satu kepada satu. So causal network ni sangat sesuai untuk complex workflows with many activity. Okay, macam banking operation lah. Banking operation, IT system, supply chains, boleh apply causal network. Okay. Actuarial models. These models combine the distributions of frequency of losses with their severity distribution to produce an objective distribution of losses due to operational risk. This can be either bottom up or top down model. So ini dia actuarial models ni kita boleh apply juga untuk top down, and also it can be applied for bottom up. Okay, because in these actuarial models, it basically combine the distribution of frequency of losses with their severity distribution. These are actually, it collects data on frequency of losses lah. Itu yang pertama. Okay, it combines the distribution of frequency of losses. Maksudnya actuarial models collects data on frequency of losses. Ini satu. Kedua, severity distribution, severity of losses. Okay, severity of losses. And then dia combine kedua-dua ini. Dia combine. Kemudian dia combine both distribution. Apa dia distribution tadi? Data on frequency of losses and severity of losses. And then it combines both distribution to generate overall loss distribution, to produce an objective distribution of losses due to operational risk. Look at that. To produce an objective distribution of losses due to operational risk. So dia combine both distribution tadi, distribution in terms of satu, frequency of losses, dua, severity of losses. So this model, it combines the distributions of this to produce an objective distribution ataupun to generate an overall loss distribution. Okay, due to operational risk. Okay, so itulah tools that we can use. Apart from these three, under bottom-up approach. Okay. Managing operational risk. So how do you manage? Three method: capital allocation and insurance, mitigating operational risk, dan satu lagi conceptual issues. Kalau capital allocation and insurance ini, kalau capital allocation and insurance, apa maksud dia? Okay. Now, because managing operational risk, now I have one question before I go through three methods. Operational risk ni, can it be eliminated? Can it be eliminated? Sampai kita perlu three methods ya. Can it be eliminated? Can it be eliminated? When you learn earlier?
I think it cannot be eliminated, madam.
Okay. Others? Your friend mentioned cannot be eliminated. What about others?
Cannot juga, madam.
Cannot,
Okay.
madam.
Why?
Boleh manage
Why?
je.
Okay, good. Why cannot be eliminated? Because operational risk ini dia bukan involve internal saja. Kalau internal kita boleh manage lagi, kan? To prevent them from happening. Tapi it involves external. So external risk cannot be eliminated. It is beyond our control. Right? Macam natural disaster, pandemic, change in regulation, semua itu out of our control. So for that reason, we can only manage it. We can only manage it through these three methods. So the first one, capital allocation. Capital allocations and insurance. Okay. So in this case, what does it mean by capital allocation? When we talk about capital allocation, means we put aside capital reserves. Sebab we cannot eliminate the operational risk, kan? Cannot eliminate it. So what we can do, we can, based on that first method, capital allocation and insurance, we can put aside capital reserve. Or we can buy insurance. Itu maksudnya capital allocate capital. Capital allocation. You put aside capital reserves ataupun you buy insurance to absorb the financial impact of the operational loss. Because when there is operational risk, it will lead to losses. Losses due to transaction error, losses due to fraud, losses due to appointment of external auditor. Semua ini ada losses dia. Penalty, fines tadi semua tu kan, because of the non-compliance. So what you can do, capital allocation means you have to put aside capital reserve. Okay? Ataupun you buy insurance to absorb the financial impact of the operational losses. Alright? So for example, a bank, they keep aside tadi extra capital to cover unexpected fraud losses. Ataupun you buy insurance policy to cover cyber attack ataupun property damage. Kan because of the external risk. Belilah insurance. Atau fire kah, tsunami kah. Okay, to cover the property damage. To cover the cyber attack. So it provides a financial cushion kepada institution so that they can survive in that operational risk event. So you can look here, dia ada expected loss. Kita sudah belajar expected loss, unexpected loss, kan? Right? So expected loss ini, it can be the losses yang you expected from the operational loss lah. Right? Unexpected losses itu beyond the confidence level itu kan. Beyond the confidence level. Ini you already learn ini. What is expected loss beza dengan unexpected. Some things that you cannot foresee. Itu unexpected loss. Expected loss itu you sudah kira-kira ini dia punya cost. Right? Okay? Due to the normal cost of the business lah. Okay? It could be due to system glitch. Kalau expected losses tu mungkin you tahu lah. Contoh dia cost due to system glitch, minor system glitch, ataupun cost of fraud cases. You tahu lah kalau itu ada amount dia, ada sudah pengiraan dia. Tapi kalau unexpected losses ini, insurans pun tidak dapat cover. Okay, so dia perlu another capital to buffer against those losses lah. Okay, so ini could be due to penalties, compliance, okay, penalties due to non-compliance. So ini mana ada insurance cover kan? Manalah insurance mau cover kesalahan yang bank buat. So dia ada contoh unexpected losses inilah penalty, fee. Manalah you want to simpan duit untuk kesalahan, amount of kesalahan yang you buat. Denda 10,000 sebab non-compliance over the policy. Itu unexpected loss. Kan? Compliance violation. You tidak akan simpan duit untuk itu. Maksudnya you bersedia untuk non-comply lah. Mana ada orang bersedia non-comply kan? Kita mesti mau comply. Mesti mau comply. Tetapi apabila ada external audit check, organization tu, oh rupanya kau tidak comply nih rules ini. Basel 3 bilang kena simpan at least 4.5% capital reserve untuk ini. Oh tidak simpan, non-compliance, penalty. So itu mana ada insurance cover. So you kena, ini ada extra money, you kena cover. Okay, sekiranya ada masalah lain. Right? So in other words, unexpected loss ni dia less predictable. Okay, but it is possible. Less predictable, but possible. And dia kalau expected losses ni dia high frequency, low severity lah, high frequency. Macam itulah yang minor system glitches itu, processing, small processing error, dia punya severity itu tidak sebanyak macam unexpected loss. So ni deviation between the quantile loss at some confidence level. You tahu lah kalau 99% disebabkan oleh minor glitches, contoh. So that 1% itu disebabkan oleh apa? So itu adalah unexpected loss. If 90% is based on due to the routine regular operational losses. Another 10% it could be due to unexpected loss. Itu maksud dia. Deviation, the difference between the quantile loss at some confidence level and the expected loss. So dia lower frequency, jarang-jarang berlaku. Tapi bila dia berlaku, dia bagi higher severity loss. Alright. Stress loss. Losses are very infrequent but extremely damaging to the institution. What is that? Stress loss ini refer kepada extremely rare but catastrophic losses that can damage the survivability of the institution. Okay, so ini berlaku outside of the organization, outside of the beyond the control lah. Could be due to cyber attack, major cyber attack, ni stress loss. Major cyber attack, terrorist attack, natural disaster. Bila berlaku natural disaster, contoh tsunami, terus shutdown operation. Apalagi kamu ingat? Kan? Terus shutdown. Bayangkan sejak satu bangunan tu kena siram lautan. Apalagi yang tinggal? Semua komputer habis, down. Nothing. Orang mati, sistem pun mati kalau tsunami. So the losses are very infrequent but extremely damaging the institution. Alright, itu dia provide that's the reason why it is extremely rare, jarang-jarang berlaku, sangat jarang berlaku, but catastrophic. Tapi losses tu sangat severe, catastrophic losses. So this is how you mitigate operational risk. Okay, a little bit more. How do we mitigate operational risk? Of course, cannot be eliminated entirely because we have external risk factor, but it can be minimized. It can be minimized in a number of ways through internal. So you can see here, the first one, separation of function. Okay. Separation of function, dual entry reconciliation, tickler system, control over amendments. Maksudnya di sini it can be mitigate. Ini dia punya explanation. It can be mitigate based on this internal, external, confirmation, verification, authorization, settlement, internal, external audits. Let's look here. Separation function, maksudnya individual responsible for committing transaction should not perform clearance and accounting function. Separations of function di sini maksud dia different staff handle different transaction. This is to prevent error and fraud. Different staff handle different stages of transaction. Contoh maybe you need to write this down. Kalau dalam bank, the person yang approve a loan, the person who approve a loan should not be the same person who disburse the loan. You get it? The person who approve a loan should not be the same person that disburse the loan or the fund. So it should be separate function, separate people with different function. Individual responsible for committing transaction should not perform. Ini maksudnya yang tadi itulah. The person who approve, for example, the person who approve a loan should not be the same person who disburse fund. Itu contoh lain kalau dalam bank. So ini maksudnya different staff handle different stages of transaction. What is the purpose? To prevent error lah, to prevent fraud. Okay, dual entries input should be matched from two different sources. That is trade ticket and the confirmation by the back office. Ini maksudnya kalau dual entries, record and maksudnya the transaction itu is recorded in two system or by two people for cross checking. Kalau kamu tinggal confirmation by the back office, maksudnya the transaction is recorded in two system, two different sources, two system, or the transaction is recorded by two people for cross checking. Okay, for cross checking lah. Ini maksudnya, and the confirmation by the back office maksudnya cross checking. So this will ensure apa dia? Kalau dual entry, accuracy, and it reduce the chance of mistake. So you sudah record di satu transaction, you akan record lagi dalam transaction yang satu lagi. Okay? Ini kalau accounting senanglah dia faham. Accounting dia faham lah. So dia akan reduce itu error ataupun chance of mistake. Reconciliation. Tadi itu input, you record transaction. Sekarang ni bila reconciliation ini, maksudnya result should be matched from different sources. For instance, the trader profit estimate and the computation by the middle office. Alright, ini maksudnya reconciliation ni you compare record. Okay, the reason why you want to compare record is to detect discrepancies, to detect differences. Right? So, contohnya bank statement dengan internal ledgers. Okay? A trader's profit estimate and the computation by the middle office. Ini mungkin susah sikit, you mau faham lah. Ini contoh dia. But you can use the contoh from the bank, which is contoh dia adalah comparing record. Ini maksudnya we comparing records. Okay? Example itu, okay, bank statement versus internal ledger. Internal ledgers. Kalau kamu ada belajar ledgers, itulah yang accounting buat, ledgers. So purpose dia adalah you want to detect discrepancies. So with this reconciliation, it helps to identify error lah. Error, unauthorized activity, sebab dia ada dua record kan, dia compare itu output. Tadi kita record, kita masuk data, dua data yang berlainan. Maksudnya kita masukkan data itu ke different sources, ataupun data itu dimasukkan oleh dua orang yang berlainan lah. Maksudnya untuk cross checking. Okay, recording transactions by two people for cross checking. Tickler system. Important dates for transaction, settlement, and exercise dates should be entered into a calendar system that automatically generate a message before due date. So ini maksudnya reminder system ini maksudnya dia track due dates lah. Tickler system ini maksudnya it's a reminder. It's a reminder system that track due dates. Okay, settlement exercise date. That automatically generate a message before due date dia bilang kan. Ini entered in the calendar system. So maksudnya dia tickler system ni dia adalah reminder system that track due dates and follow-ups, for example. So contoh, it will alert the bank for loan repayment. It will alert the bank for contract renewals. So itu tickler system. Fungsi dia adalah as a reminder system. It track due dates, it track obligations. Oh, ini yang saya kena buat hari ini. Itu tickler system. Tick maksudnya. It's a reminder system that track due dates, obligation, and follow-ups. Control over amendments. Any amendment to original deal tickets should be subject to the same strict control as original trade tickets. So control over amendments ini maksudnya strict control of changes to records contract system. So this actually prevents unauthorized modification lah that could lead to fraud or error. Control over amendments, itu maksudnya. Control over amendments. Orang tidak boleh sembarangan modify the original document, original record. So, control over amendment maksudnya it is a strict control of changes, amendment, changes kepada apa? To the original deal ticket. Maksudnya original deal ticket ni kepada apa sajalah? Record, ini can be our record, okay, contract, or system. Okay, what is control over amendments? It is a strict control of changes to original deal ticket, means to changes to records, contract, system, right? To prevent unauthorized modification that could lead to fraud or error. Okay, itu internal. External pula, okay, habis sudah tidak lama. Okay, please bear with me. I know it's already 10 o'clock. External control methods. This one is based on confirmation. Confirmation tu tadi. This one is a trade ticket need to be confirmed with counterparty which provides an independent check on transaction. So confirmation di sini adalah independent confirmation of transaction. Confirm with counterparty with which provides independent check and transaction. Ini confirmation. Confirmation ini maksudnya independent confirmation. Ini maksudnya independent confirmation of transaction with counterparty. Okay, counterparty. So a bank contoh will confirm dia punya trade details with another institution. Contoh, a bank confirming trade details with another institution. Verifications of prices. To value position, prices should be obtained from external, okay, from external sources. So this implies that an institution should have capability of valuing a transaction in-house before entering it. So ini adalah verifications of prices. Ini maksudnya you ensure that the transaction prices tadi, verifications of prices, you ensure that the transaction prices they are accurate and consistent with the market value. Okay, itu maksudnya. Prices should be obtained from external sources. Prices should be obtained from external sources. Ini maksudnya you want to ensure the prices they are accurate and consistent with the market value. So this implies that an institution should have capability of valuing the transaction. So they are confirmed with the market value, itu transaction price. Authorization. The counterparty should be provided with a list of personnel authorized to trade as well as a list of allowed transaction. Kalau authorization ini normally authorization they require approvals before executing the transaction. You see, the counterparty should be provided with a list of personnel authorized. Maksudnya this authorization ini dia requiring approvals from the personnel. Okay? From the specific personnel before they execute any transaction. Settlement. Payment process itself can indicate if some of the terms of transaction have been incorrectly recorded. For instance, if the first cash payment on swap are not matched across counterparties. So settlement here, in this case, right? Kenapa guna settlement as the external control method for operational risk? This one, it ensure the correct transfer. You want to ensure a correct transfer saja. Okay, transfer of cash, okay, at the right time. So with settlement, it reduce risk of failed ataupun failed threads, or mismatch transaction lah. Okay. Internal and external audit. The examination provide useful information on potential weakness in the organization structure or business process. So internal and external audit ni kita tahu lah, internal audit dia conducted within the organization lah. Purpose dia is for the internal audit ini normally dia review process and dia ensure control in accordance. Kalau external audit ini dia provide independent review lah from outside firm, by outside firm. Okay, by outside firm to give assurance on the compliance. So both types of audit, they detect weaknesses. Both detect potential weaknesses. Non-compliance or risk that the management may overlook. Itu saja. Internal and external audit. Okay. So internal audit itu maksudnya it is conducted within the organization. Purpose dia to review process, ensure controls are in accordance. Everything is in accordance. Kalau external audit ini dia adalah independent review by outside firm. Okay, to give assurance on the compliance. So both type of audits ini fungsi dia satu saja. They detect weaknesses, they detect non-compliance ataupun risk that the management may overlook. Itu external. Okay. Conceptual issues. Dari mana datang conceptual issues ini? Ini adalah yang terakhir. Ini nah. So kita sudah belajar ini. Sekarang ni conceptual issues. Last one. Okay. Conceptual issues. So apa dia conceptual issues? Are you guys still alive? Boleh lagi? 2 slide lagi nih. Boleh?
Boleh, Doktor.
Boleh, madam.
Yes, madam.
Alright. Now, conceptual issues. Kenapa dipanggil sebagai conceptual issue? Konsep maksudnya fundamental, basic. Conceptual issues. Okay. So, the word concept ini dia idea, dia teori, fundamental. Okay. Bila kita sebut konsep kan, conceptual. So it is basically a theory ataupun a basic issues, fundamental challenges and limitation. Itu maksudnya issues dia apa? Challenges can be limitation. Right? So bila kita sebut konsep tadi, okay, ini this actually refers to fundamental challenges lah. Fundamental challenges. So apa maksudnya fundamental challenges? Fundamental challenges and limitation. So ini merujuk kepada bila kita sebut fundamental, ini adalah basic. Bila kita sebut challenges, this could be problems and limitation. So conceptual issues, basic problems. This actually refers to basic problems. Okay, in operational risk. Dia tidak seperti credit risk, tidak seperti market risk. operational risk ini, they are very unique, and it cannot be it cannot be handled only in one standard way. So it is very unique sebab dia involve internal and external. Therefore, it is very difficult to standardize one method to everything. One method may apply for internal, but it cannot apply for external. One method can apply for external, but cannot apply for internal. So that's why it cannot be, it is unlike credit risk or market risk. Operational risk ni, they are very unique. Right? Very unique type of risk. Okay, operational risk. That's why conceptual issue ini. Okay, we talk about the fundamental challenges ataupun limitation. Okay, so it is a basic problem that make operational risk itu challenging to measure, challenging to be managed, unlike other types of risk such as credit and market risk. So let's look at that reason why. First one is due to largely internal to financial institution. Second, it's not easily to measure. The third, operational losses that can threaten the stability. Ini can threaten the stability of the institution are relatively rare. Okay, ini maksudnya issue dia in terms of inilah due to this three factor as I mentioned earlier. So in controlling the operational risk, the first one, it requires loss prevention. Okay, how do you control operational risk? Through loss prevention. You send your employees for training. You develop your system. You review your employees. Okay, so in this case, you prevent the loss before it happens. When you send your employee for training and development, you reduce human error, for example. When you do review, when you do a regular review and evaluation of your staff performance and compliance, so you reduce the loss penalties, reduce the fines and number of fines, you reduce non-compliance. All right. In controlling operational risk, okay, through loss control. So loss control means minimizing the impact of operational losses when they occur through planning, organizations, and backup. So ini sebenarnya loss control maksudnya apa? Minimize the impact of operational losses when they occur. Okay, so what you can do is you do a careful planning and organizations of processes, and you can do some strong backup system. Strong backup system. Ini maksudnya strong backup system. Okay, strong backup system before before the disaster happen. Okay, strong backup system maksudnya data backup lah. So if a system, kalau lah berlaku system failure, so a bank can switch to its backup server to continue operation without major disruption. Okay, without major disruption. Kalau ini terjadi, when it occur, when the risk occur. Loss financing. Okay, the next strategy is focus on financing. This is where you obtain financing through insurance. So you buy insurance to cover operational losses. You use external insurance here to transfer part of the risk lah. Part of the risk to another party. Insurance policy ini kita ada insurance policy untuk insurance policy for fraud, cyber attack, property damage. Okay, so we buy external insurance so that we be able to cover the operational losses. The fourth one is loss insulation. Loss insulation maksudnya is to build financial strength to absorb unexpected losses. Loss insulation. Ini financial institution capital. Maksudnya di sini, okay, where you build financial strength to absorb unexpected losses. Okay, so you maintain sufficient capital reserve lah. Financial institution capital tu maksudnya you maintain sufficient capital reserve as a cushion. Okay, ni maintain sufficient capital reserves as a cushion. Okay, following the Basel III requirement, right? So once again, how do you control operational risk here? How do you control operational risk here? This actually requires a holistic approach. Still remember, we talk about holistic approach in the first few slides early. So how do you control operational risk? Okay, it can go through loss prevention strategy, loss control strategy, okay, loss financing, again, loss insulation. So through training, through planning, through external insurance and financial institutions capital. In controlling operational risk due to loss prevention, so these are the strategies, okay, as mentioned. So these four strategies help the financial institution to stay resilient against small risks and small and bigger risks under operational, right? Operational risks. Okay, so that's all chapter 6. Thank you. Are you guys following? Boleh faham?
Boleh, madam.
Boleh, dokter.
Okay, so basically we have already completed chapter 6. Now it's already 10:21. Chapter 7 tu ada 9 slides saja, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, ada 9 slides saja. Sorry, ada 12 slide. Alright. So I'll give you kalau kita sekarang hari ini hari Jumat.